Hey everybody, it's the Living on the Verge podcast and it's me, Virginia. It's June and that means that it's Pride Month. I just got back from West Hollywood for Pride weekend and I can't wait to tell you all about it. You guys, what an experience. I had never been to Pride before. It was something I'd always wanted to do. And I just thought this was the year to do it because I know that there was going to be a lot of fun activities going on and there would be a lot of buzz in the reality world because Vanderpump Rules has always had a big, part in the Pride Parade and in the festivities, and they kind of go all out because they're right there in the heat of all the action, right in the middle of everything. So I knew that I was going to make a day of this and it was going to be a day I couldn't forget. And I was right. I had a good time. I went with Courtney. We had an amazing time because we both just really, at the very last minute, decided let's head on down there and see what we could get ourselves into. So I made reservations at Tom Tom. I made reservations at Sir. And honestly, the plan was let's go to Tom Tom, have a drink, walk down to Sir, have a drink, maybe some goat cheese balls, and then grab a sandwich from Something About Her and come back home. Well, if you've been to Pride, you know that, first of all, things never go according to plan. And second of all, there's way more to do than you thought. So you're probably going to spend a lot more time there than you originally anticipated. And of course, that's what happened to us. I could not believe how hard it was to find a parking spot. And if I ever go back, I'll definitely stay in town for the weekend and just Uber or walk, stay at a place where I can actually walk there, because we spent probably an hour and a half finding somewhere to park. And when we finally did, it was a good maybe half a mile walk to where everything was happening. I let Courtney off and I told her, go head into Tom Tom, check in for us because they had been calling us because we were running so late. And I would catch up with her when I found the parking. Well, on my way to catch up with her, obviously I was passing right by Sir, and I had canceled my reservation at Sir because we had wasted so much time with the parking that our reservation time was not going to allow us enough time to have any time at Tom Tom. And I didn't want that. So I canceled the reservation when I was looking for parking. And I happened to walk up, and pass by Sir. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to stop here real quick and just find out. And so I did. And I came upon Audrey. Now, Audrey is a beautiful young lady. All of the girls at Sir that day were wearing pink bikinis, like real hot pink Barbie pink bikinis, and the, gorgeous glitter. And then, of course, some of them had on shorts. Others, had on G-strings. Others had on cute little skirts. It just depended. But for the most part, everybody was dressed in a very festive style. Well, I walk up to the podium and I ask Audrey if there's any chance that we could get in to maybe have something to eat and have a couple of drinks. And she said that the computers were down, so she couldn't check my reservation time, but they did in fact have room to seat us if we wanted to eat. And if not, we were welcome to come in and hang out at the bar. So she took my name down and I told her I would run and go get my daughter-in-law and we'd be back. And I asked her name as I was leaving. And she said, oh, my name's Audrey. And that becomes a little bit more important later on. But anyway, as I look over my shoulder, who walks in right behind me? None other than the Lisa Vanderpump. I was blown away. She was wearing this beautiful hat, a bright pink jacket, and was wearing jeans and had a gorgeous pink metallic handbag. I think it was a YSL. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And listen, she is striking in person. I did not catch her in time to get a picture of her face, and I'm kind of glad I didn't because when I caught the picture behind her, you might be able to see in the one that I'm going to post that there was a camera facing right at me. And so I didn't want to photobomb their scene. I didn't realize that they were filming until then. And then it dawned on me, oh, that's why there was a camera outside when I walked in. So I asked Audrey, are they filming? And she said yes. And I said, okay, well, I'll be back. And so off to Tom Tom I went. And I caught up with Courtney, who was sitting there patiently waiting for me as I fought my way through the happy, happy Pride crowd. And she still, I think there was a little glass of water in front of her, but that was about it. I asked her if anybody had come to check on her, and she said no. And you guys, it happened again. If you listen to my Weekend in WeHo episodes, I don't know, back there right at the beginning, you'll hear that I complained a lot about the service at Tom Tom, and I'm sorry, but it happened again. It was probably a good 10, 15 minutes before the server came up and asked us if we wanted anything. And he was really nice. He did apologize. He said, I'm sorry, sorry for the wait. And then handed us menus. And somebody came by and refilled our water. And then he eventually came back and asked us for our order. And by then we had only decided, we're going to just have drinks and then we're going to head out to Sir, because I told Courtney that I had just seen Lisa Vanderpump. And of course she was dying to go over there. And so was I, if I'm being totally honest. So you guys, 10 minutes go by. I do a couple of rounds at Tom Tom. Peter had walked in. A couple of other people were roaming about, but it wasn't very crowded at all. And after going to the bathroom, I come back and still no cocktails. So by this point, I'm trying to figure out how to make my escape. And I tell Courtney I'm going to go to the pump side. Oh, I forgot to mention that. When I walked in, well, even before that, and I'm digressing on my digression, but Courtney called me when I was still driving around and she couldn't find Tom Tom. And I said, well, it's there. And she said, no, the only thing I could find is pump. And I said, what do you mean? Oh, I know. Well, the last time I was there, you'll remember that I mentioned that there was also the pump sign right next to the Tom Tom sign. You guys, they had the Tom Tom sign covered and it was just the pump sign. So that's why Courtney couldn't find Tom Tom. But anyway, back to where we were. I go back to the pump side and I see that the server is kind of standing around the bar, and I didn't know if he was waiting for our cocktails, so I didn't want to just bail out. But at the same time, we had blown by this time a good 2 hours between parking and waiting, and I was just done with it. So I told Courtney I was going to go around and give her the high sign if we were going to bail out. And I did walk around, and as I went to give her the high sign, she pointed out that our drinks had just been served. So thank goodness, at least that. I had asked the server to bring the check with the drinks just because I knew that it was going to take another 15 or 20 minutes to get the check. And sure enough, it took a while. I flagged him down. I was able to get the check paid and we bailed on out of there. I'm sorry, Tom Tom / pump / whatever you're going to be these days. I don't think I will be back. If so, it's going to have to be like at the bar, maybe when Tom Schwartz is there. And the service is a little bit better. To be fair, it was Pride, but also, to be honest, it wasn't crowded enough for the lack of service. So back to the happy stuff. We walk down the street and, we're just people watching. It's so fun. We're having a great time. And we walk up to Sir, and as we're approaching, there are kids. I say kids because I'm not a kid, but young men standing out front, kind of perched on the pillars, and they're spraying water guns and bubble guns into the street. And I look to my right, and of course they're being filmed, and we have to walk in. So I just quickly make my approach, and one of them says to me, "Be careful, you're going to get squirted unless you're coming in here, are you?" And we said, "Yes, we are." So as I walk in, I see Peter and Guillermo's wife, Natalie, taking a picture under the Sir sign. And somebody else was also taking pictures of them and with them. And then once they broke off, I walked up and I said, "Hi, Peter, good to see you again." And he said, "Hey, good to see you too." And, I asked how things were going, and I shook Natalie's hand. You guys, she's so beautiful in person. She's just got this super, sweet demeanor. I just found her super charming. Anyhow, Courtney was pretty flabbergasted. It was super cute. So I asked if we could have a picture with Peter, and he said, of course. And Natalie took the picture. So that was really cool. I'll post them on my Instagram. And once we did that, I asked Peter if he knew where Aubrey was. Sorry, Audrey. Why did I call her Aubrey? If he knew where she was. And he said, oh, there she is. And he said, they're looking for you. And I said, hey, Audrey, we're back. Do you still have a table for us? And she said, yeah, give me a minute. And she walked back and then came and got us a cool little table. As we walked in, it was jumping. People were dancing on the bar. The DJ was just literally, the roof was blowing off the place. But it was the same vibe up and down the entire street. So it was pretty cool. We got a really cool table, which was not too close so that I couldn't hear what we were saying. But it was close enough that we were still in the action. And it turned out to be a perfect seat because they were filming and I was able to kind of sit in that back room off to the right, which is right by the room where Lisa always has dinner when she goes there. And sure enough, we're sitting there no more than a few minutes, and Lisa walks out of that room and goes into the other room, the one that leads out to the Sir Alley. And eventually our server came up. Our server is Kim, and she was such a sweet girl. She asked us if we were going to be eating and told us, hey, if you want to order something, we are getting ready to close off for lunch. Of course, you could have appetizers, but if you wanted lunch, you might want to order now. So that was nice because we were going to wait a while and then we would have missed out. So we ordered lunch. Courtney ordered, they had a special menu for Pride weekend, and Courtney ordered a turkey chilaquiles, and I ordered the Sir Burger off of their regular menu. We both ordered a cocktail off of their specialty menu, and it was a penis something, but I can't remember the name, so I'm going to, just admit that I forgot it. It had vodka, it had elderberry, it had grapefruit juice, a little bit of ginger beer, if I remember correctly, and it was pretty yummy, a little sweet for my taste. I threw some water in mine because it was a little too sweet, but if you like a sweet, fizzy, refreshing drink, then, it was pretty good. They were, I think, $17 a piece, something like that. And we got our food pretty quickly. It was pretty funny, but again, I'm sitting in there in the middle of a filming and I'm not really grasping that they're filming. So it takes me a minute to start to look around at the faces. But you guys, the cast that leaked, I can tell you for certain, Venus was filming, Natalie was filming, Demiana was filming, Gabrielle was filming. I'm sure that Israel Isaac was filming, whether he's really a cast member or just a constant presence, for lack of a better word, I don't know. And we had Audrey and Kim. Well, Kim was our server, and I saw them in a scene a little bit later, and Audrey ends up being part of the scandal that I'll share with you at the end of this part of the episode. Well, we started talking, and everybody was having a good time. The music was jumping, and all of a sudden, they brought the music down, and Venus got on top of the DJ stand and then jumped onto the bar and started talking about being accepted and how he came to West Hollywood in 2023 and he got a job at Sir, and it was the first time in his life that he had been accepted. I'm sure all of this is going to be on the show because they always cover Pride on Vanderpump Rules. But it was a pretty touching moment to be there for in person. It was pretty cool. Everybody was super supportive. He got a lot of love. He was wearing these rainbow wings along with his rainbow bottoms. It was really, really cute. And I think that, I only met him in the context of Pride. So all I could say was that for that day, it was really, really a cool vibe. I don't know what he would be like if I walked in and had him serve me on any other day and they weren't filming, but they all had their best behavior on, and for sure all parties were in a wonderful mood. We did see Demi, and I don't think she's as much of a Sheena lookalike as everybody else thinks. I think she has her own look. She was not really in the mix as much as I had expected her to be. And then we also saw Gabrielle. That's Gabrielle Still. I guess there's two. There's Gabrielle and Gabriella. I don't remember seeing Gabriella. But Gabrielle is the one who is a model. She has a baby. She was in the thick of it all and filming a couple of scenes. And then we had Natalie McGuire, who was or is or rumored was allegedly to be dating Paolo, the bartender who's like significantly older than her. I did not see him there, and I'm hoping that she's moved on from him, because you may remember during the Weekend in WeHo episode, he was the guy that came out to his motorcycle when we were in the back alley of Sir, and I made some comment about his bike, and he just gave me this deadpan ridiculous look. So I didn't like him, and I hope she's moved on. If you didn't, Natalie, sorry. I don't know from anything else, but Audrey, the adorable little girl at the front, was in it, you guys. At one point, she's standing outside of the room that Lisa and the rest of them were in. And I don't know if they were having a meeting or, there was food going in and out of there as well. So maybe they were actually eating. And Lisa comes out, cameras follow her. She's in the alley. I went out to see if that was the way to get to the alley, because I didn't know that yet. And there's a lady in a white jacket with the earpiece. I thought she was part of production. Turns out she's security detail. I talked to her a little later. She was very cool. Anyway, she said, do you need something? And I said, I said, are they filming? And she said, yeah. I said, never mind. I just wanted to see if this was the way to the alley. I don't want to be anywhere near the cameras. And I kind of laughed and scurried away. Well, as I sat back down, I had a direct vantage point to the door open, and Audrey was standing right outside the door. And at one point I called her, and she turned around and said, hold on, I'll be right there. And kind of pointing to the room as if she had to do something. Well, within 30 seconds, the camera opened the door and she came in. So that goes to show that these are, in some fashion, produced reality shows. Because the reason Audrey couldn't leave when I called her was because production had told her her scene was coming up and that she would have to be entering the room. Well, they left the door a little ajar, which is what they do whenever they're filming. And I could see in, and it got pretty heated in there. Venus was in there, and then it looked like, I can't remember if, I know Gabrielle was in there, and I can't remember if Demi was in there, and I think Natalie was in there. But nonetheless, it got pretty heated, and, the scene must have ended because all the cameras came rolling out and followed Lisa into the alley. I thought she was leaving, and that's why they had snuck her out through the back. But no, they were filming out there. I could see the cameras, and they were out there for quite a bit. And then they came back in, and they announced that Natalie was going to be debuting her single, and she was going to be performing it for us. So I got myself poised in a position. I didn't realize the position that I was in was such a cool and cherry location until the cameraman came and stood right behind me. He was taller than me, so I didn't have to move, which was pretty cool. And I had a pretty prime view. I didn't want to get in the way of the camera, but I had a pretty prime view. So I have it all on video, and I will release some parts of it so that you can see the performance. I will let you guys be the judge. I thought that for an impromptu live performance, she did a good job. Her voice has some range, and no shade to Sheena Shea, but it was better than good as gold, my friends. And I guess that is a little bit of shade to Sheena Shea, but Sheena herself will say she's not the very best singer, and she knows it. So hopefully that'll get me out of trouble with her. Anyway, Natalie did a good job. The song was pretty cool. I thought she did a good job. She was up there performing. She had two of the guys around her. It was very sensual, very cool. And she got a big round of applause at the end, and everybody started chanting Natalie. So that was a really cool thing to be a part of. I'm sure it's going to be a part of the episode. So stay tuned when it premieres. And maybe we'll even have some sort of a watch party or something. That might be really cool. Anyhow, I'm sitting there eating my burger, and it was really good this time. I had had a bite of their burgers once before, and it did not taste good. But this one was really good. So maybe I just went there on an off night, or who knows, maybe it was the company I was keeping. They were poisoning us. Just kidding. Anyhow, I'm sitting there, and Natalie walks right by where we're sitting to a nearby mirror. And as she turns around, I said hi, and she said hello. And I asked her if she was happy with her performance. And she said that she had totally blacked out and did not even remember. And I said, I know what you mean, because I used to sing, and I remember that feeling of going on a stage when you're very nervous and feeling like you are not in the moment. And you get through it, but you have no idea how you did because you are almost out of body. And she said, exactly. And I said, listen, you're doing fine. And I thought it was really cute. And I think you're going to do a really good job on the show. And she hugged me, and she said, you know what, that means a lot, especially coming from another singer. And I told her that I would watch out for her. And after the hug, we took a quick picture, and she left. So that's really cool. And, it was super fun. Well, after her song, they started just dancing in earnest. And when I tell you this place was jumping, you could not walk from where we were sitting to the restroom without having to do that thing where you like dance your way through the crowd in order to be able to push your way through without people knowing you're pushing your way through. Well, it wasn't hard to do because the music was really good and the vibe was really cool and everybody was in a really good mood. So after, wandering around a little bit and checking things out, we started to wind down. We were having a really good time. We did see Venus and Natalie were dancing on the bar a little bit later. And then we saw that Kim was over on the side. I didn't see who she was filming with, but she was definitely filming. So we actually got to be served by someone who is going to either be not a main character or maybe even a main cast member of the new Vanderpump Rules. We'll see. Stay tuned. It was so much fun. We saw Israel Isaac. He was wearing this aqua blue, rhinestoney, long coat, dressy thing with nothing under and some, I think they were cowboy boots, and he had a hat on. Listen, this is the tallest person I've ever seen in person, I think, in my life. And maybe it wasn't, but because of the outfit, he was giving all legs. I'm telling you, if I felt like if I stood up next to him, his legs would come to my shoulders. He was really tall, and that's why he makes such an impression. I am not, well-versed enough to know how he fits into the group, but I'm sure I'll figure it out, and I'll bring that information to you when I get it. But that was it. We wrapped it up and headed over to Something About Her because it was almost time for it to close, and I did not want to miss out on that part of my little adventure because remember, the last time I was at Something About Her, I was just completely impressed and overwhelmed by the deliciousness of the sandwich I ordered. So if I'm being honest, I had kind of been thinking about the Cameron since I'd last had it. You can imagine my disappointment when we got there and I asked, "Are you out of any sandwiches?" And she said, "No, only the Cameron and the Viola, the two I wanted to order." So we settled for the Kate. And the Kate is burrata, tomato, red onion, balsamic, onion marmalade, fresh basil, organic balsamic glaze, and pesto aioli, salt and pepper on a rustic ciabatta roll. Well, I made the mistake of asking to take it to go. And I knew that I shouldn't because I just read you the ingredients and I knew it wasn't going to travel well. But to be honest, between the heat and, the noise and the fact that the place was going to close in a few minutes, I didn't want to be rushed to eat my food. We just asked for it to go. And the gal who served us, she's going to be so mad I forgot her name. She's got a very unusual name. And if they weren't closed on the day that I am recording this podcast, I would have called and asked her name because I told her I was going to shout her out and she kept making me promise not to. But we took a picture together and she told me that her secret is that she's the one who comes in early and makes all the sandwiches. And then Courtney asked, I have to ask, but do Ariana and Katie ever come in? And she said, of course they do. More Katie than Ariana. And then she asked if we were going to be there tomorrow, meaning Sunday. And I said, no, we were leaving. And she said, oh, bummer. Well, I didn't ask her to elaborate, but I now know from everything that happened yesterday, Sunday, that Katie was at something about her along with Dana yesterday, and they were all at Pride. So next time I'm definitely spending the weekend and doing both days of Pride because I would have liked to have seen the parade. And Heather Dubrow showed up and, Sutton showed up, and I wasn't there for the parade, so I don't know who else was there, but damn, from the pictures, it looked like it was a really good time. So took a couple of pictures in front of something about her and then made the trek, or started to make the trek back to the car. And you may remember that I've mentioned Drake's more than once on this podcast because I heard they have the world's coldest or the town's coldest martini. And I'm a sucker for a good martini. So it just so happened to be 5:05 when we passed by Drake's. And I asked the valet if they had a bar where we could go in and have a drink. And he said, absolutely. So Courtney and I walked in and wow, what a cool place. I have to go back there and have dinner. It was completely what I thought it was going to be. Old Hollywood, the velvet red colors with the plaid green and red carpet. And the bar was this big protruding U-shaped bar with the, elbow rests that was all padded. And it had this really cool red door that you had to walk into before you even got into the restaurant. There were really neat pictures on the walls of Frank Sinatra and all the old Rat Pack people. It was really, really cool. And even the televisions were in black and white. I asked the bartender if it was by design, and he said yes. And he said that he hated it because there was a basketball game on, and he always had trouble figuring out which team was which and what was going on. Never dawned on me, but yeah, that could be a problem until you figure it out, right? Wow, first world problems. Anyhow, we pulled up, we ordered one of the coldest martinis, and I thought it would be a good idea if we split it. So we did that, and I couldn't even drink half of my half. So I ended up giving it to Courtney, but it was yummy. It had a little bit more vermouth than I like in my martinis. So you could tell that they were pre-mixed because he brought out this little bottle, which was super frosty, as frosty as the glasses. And it was already done, and he poured half of it into each of our frosted glasses and then topped it off with the beautiful lemon peel. I asked for olives because I'm an olive girl with my martinis, but in my opinion, it was cold, not the coldest I've ever had. I've heard of places where they replace your glass if you're still drinking with the new frosted one. This wasn't one of those places. And it was good enough, but again, I guess it's just because I don't like vermouth, so I shouldn't be so hard on it. I would go back there for dinner. I looked at the menu. There were beautiful people in there. It looked like there were a couple of young people, maybe out on prom night because they were dressed up and had the corsage and the whole thing. It was really cute. We didn't stay very long at all. We had our cocktail, thanked the bartender, promised to come back, and headed out of Dodge and out of West Hollywood. I really wish that I would have made the decision to spend the weekend there, and I definitely will do that again when I go back again next year. But it's because I'm going back in the next few days that I didn't want to spend a whole weekend there. And in retrospect, it probably would have been a lot of fun. So maybe next year we get together with family or friends or podcast followers and we go and we have an amazing time. I'll tell you all about that when it's time. For now, all of it was so much fun. And if you've never been to Pride, I highly recommend that you do go. And what luck to walk in on a filming of Vanderpump Rules. You know, I love when things happen by chance. And it really made me happy that, you know, everybody that I had met before still recognized me. It was really sweet to me. And I look forward to spending more time there and getting to know this cast. I don't know what the new Vanderpump Rules is going to bring, but everybody I met was really sweet. Oh gosh, you guys, I almost forgot to tell you the juiciest part. We walked out after by way of the alley because Courtney wanted to see the famous Sir Alley, and we went and sat down, and all of a sudden we were chatting and somebody said, shh. Well, again, oblivious Virginia didn't realize that there was a camera out there pointing at the building. And when I looked to see what it was pointing at, Audrey was standing up against the building, facing the wall, with her face covered, and she was sobbing, like really sobbing. Well, they were filming her. It looks like she took some time to compose herself, and then she went back into the building. But I can't wait to see what that's all about. It must have had something to do with the conflict from earlier and all the storming out. Maybe it's going to be really good, you guys. Who knows? I'm going to give it a chance. I don't know if I'll cover it in its entirety because there are so many other things in the reality world. But if it's good, I will. So we'll just see. It really was sad to see Audrey out back crying, and I wanted to console her, but obviously they were filming, so hopefully she's okay, and we'll see what the season brings and what that was all about if it makes the cut, I guess. I'm so surprised by the interactions that I had with the alleged cast members, and I'm really excited to see what it'll bring because I had a whole different takeaway than I first anticipated, and I really just can see that these are really relationships and that there was some tension that was pretty organic. So we shall see what the reboot of Vanderpump Rules and the new cast brings us. I don't think they're really calling it a reboot, but anyhow, we'll see what all that has to offer as filming continues and then concludes. And I'm sure we'll hear news of a reunion and official cast releases, and what fun to be in on it all. I'll continue to bring it to you. I really, really enjoyed meeting some of the girls, especially Natalie and Audrey. And I don't know where this lands in the good girl, bad girl scheme of it all in the reality part of it. But it looks like we have another show on our hands, you guys. So let's just see. I'm really glad you joined me for this special episode of the Living on the Verge podcast where I covered my day in WeHo for Pride. I will be back with Atlanta and episode 6 of Love Hotel very shortly. Thank you so much. Be kind to each other, and happy Pride.